So really, when I pieced together what women were telling me was that this experience of living with a partner and experiencing violence that was alcohol fueled, it was experienced in the form of a cycle. And women talked about this, an initial start of the drinking cycle, where sometimes the partner was quite happy and fun, but then the it increasingly became more dangerous. And you'll see there that the where we talk about women being unsafe and stages that were safe or the worst stages, these were women's own words in the way that they were describing this experience. And I think that quote there really highlights this progression. So as Kath said, once he started drinking on a Friday night, then this Mr. Happy, Mr. Bouncy would come out. But then Mr. Happy started turning into Mr. Sarcastic, making personal remarks, and then being threatening, and then, hurting. Just in the early relationship, women don't see the drinking problems, mainly because it's very much masked by a culture that really celebrates men's drinking. So anything that's problematic is really very hard to detect in that early relationship. But then it's when relationships become more established, women, they have children, that's when they start to notice that the problematic drinking and that cycle that I just described starts to become a recognized pattern. This is where we also see the role of alcohol really having a big impact on the household functioning and is also a source of conflict within the marital relationship.
So in the review, we sort of lay out this pathway, but one of the really important things we want to highlight here, and next, please, are that there's really multiple opportunities to intervene. So there's opportunities to intervene to reduce the use of alcohol, and we'll talk about that in the coming slides. But there's also an opportunity to intervene to reduce the risk that alcohol results in violence. And it's important to, as much as we can, do both of those things. All right, so at the Prevention Collaborative, we focus on violence prevention, and really we're trying to understand what does all of this mean for violence prevention programs. So first of all, very few violence prevention programs explicitly address harmful alcohol use in their content. It might be mentioned as a risk factor, but there isn't much content beyond that. However, we have found that several programs have, and actually just to say, this is also true that relatively few alcohol reduction approaches specifically address violence prevention. There are some programs, which you can read about in the review, that do intentionally address both. But we have seen within the field of violence prevention, we have seen some IPV programs that have shown impact on both alcohol use and IPV, even with fairly limited content around alcohol. And it may be because these programs are actually employing some of the kind of elements or factors that are contributing to reduction in alcohol use that are used in alcohol programs. So they're aiming to strengthen self-regulation skills. They're building stronger social ties, and by that, sometimes providing alternatives to drinking. They focus on kind of aspirational goals in a more positive sense of your relationship and your family. They also focus on masculinities and gender norms, which you can unpack to understand the link between masculinities and drinking and masculinities and violence. They focus on relationship skills, and they're often also highlighting kind of financial decision-making and bringing in this understanding of how alcohol in the family affects finances.
So in terms of the two sites, across the 18 zones that we had looked at in the two different sites in two provinces in the country, we found 383 alcohol outlets, 178 in Ga-Rankuwa, which is in Gauteng, and 205 in Thembalethu. And we found worryingly that most of these alcohol outlets were in residential areas, 92 and 97% respectively in these two sites that we looked at. Unsurprisingly, taverns and shebeens were the most common outlet types in both communities, and beer and cider, followed by cider, were the most widely sold types of alcohol. We also found that there were very long trading times and that most of the alcohol outlets opened 7 days a week. And when we actually did apart from the mapping work we did, when we did qualitative work, we also found that alcohol was available for pretty much 7 days a week at any time of the night or day for a large majority of these outlets.
So some of the comments that people shared with us in our qualitative interviews and focus group discussions is that on the whole, across both sides, people saw alcohol as a problem in their community. And particularly, they linked alcohol consumption to men consuming alcohol, not to say that it was that women don't consume, but most often people spoke about men, and most often they spoke about alcohol in relation to interpersonal violence.